Bueno, muchas gracias. I think we are going to do the conversation in English if this is good for you and for all of you. Well, today, I guess Pablo needs no introduction, but it's curious, no? Because you're Spanish, and you're one of the most important global executives considered by Forbes as CEO of the decade, considered by HBR, Harvard Business Review, several years as the best CEO in the world. So
2 years, not several ones.
3 years.
No,
3
two.
years, 3 years, 3 years. I know you're very humble, so I'm not. I know that you don't like this sort of compliments, but it's very impressive, and we feel very proud as Spanish to have you here.
Thank you.
In addition to this, Pablo has accepted very generously to be the chairman of the International Advisory Board at our university, which says a lot about your generosity also and about your willingness to give back as well, no? On your experience. So, well, I mean, we are in the South Summit. This is an innovation and entrepreneurship event. I want to ask you one very simple question. What does innovation mean to you?
Perhaps I will begin. Well, first of all, Diego, thank you very much, and I'm very happy to be here at South Summit, and I am really impressed about what South Summit is becoming, and I think it's unbelievable what is being done here. But perhaps answering your question about innovation, I will begin answering it in Spain, and then I come back to English, because hay una poesía muy conocida en España, ¿no? Que le pregunta a uno ¿qué es poesía? Y el otro le dice, y tú me lo preguntas, poesía eres tú. With innovation, I would say the same. You are asking me this question. Innovation is South Summit, innovation is Instituto de Empresa, so all this is what really is innovation. For me, innovation is much more than technology, much more than data, much more than machine learning, much more than the metaverse. Innovation is a state of mind. It's always trying to, not being afraid of change, always trying to improve things, never being satisfied. Of course, this doesn't mean to change just because you want to change, but sometimes in companies, when you become big, there could be a tendency to be more conservative, because you have something to lose, and then you're afraid to innovate. Well, if you begin with this type of approach, it is clear that you are going to fail as a company. And I think it happens the same in every aspect of life. So the way I would characterize innovation is much more with this idea. It's a permanent state of mind about how do you approach things, whatever you are talking about. So it can be, if you think about innovation in a company, it can be something about your product, it can be something about your decision-making process, many different things. And of course, part of innovation has to do with technology. But I think even before technology, there have been many innovative companies or many innovative people, no? So having a very good idea. So innovation has to do with this state of mind.
That leads me to the comment I wanted to do about entrepreneurship. At our university, you know, one of our core values is entrepreneurship. Actually, it's not entrepreneurship, it's having an entrepreneurial mindset, which is very related to what you're saying about innovation. We believe that it's not just about starting companies, it's about being able to embrace change in everything that we do, no? And I think change there is a key word, no? Those that have an entrepreneurial mindset, those that have an innovative mindset, are the ones that are able to embrace change and to take the biggest opportunity from change happening, no? But as a university, and now that you are with us in this academic educational project, which our university is, how can we foster this entrepreneurial mindset?
Well, what I would say in general, that the most important thing for this is education. I mean, and it is clear that in Spain, in my opinion, we are very far away from where we should be in terms of promoting this entrepreneurial mindset when you are studying at school, or even in many cases at the university. I think this is the most important thing. Of course, events such as this are incredibly helpful, and it is clear that the environment is changing. But I think we still are missing a lot from the point of view of the education. I remember some time ago I was reading an interview with one person that was the person with the best grades in selectividad in Galicia, in this case, no? And they were asking her, what are you planning to do? And it was a girl, and she was saying, well, I am very idealistic, so that is why I want to become a civil servant. And well, that's fine, because I mean, she wanted to be in public service, but it is exactly the same. I am very idealistic, and I want to become an entrepreneur. I want to create jobs, I want to have better product for the society, I want to pay taxes if I am profitable, and this is the way to support these public services. So I think education, we are still very, very far away from where we should be from every point of view in terms of promoting this entrepreneurial spirit, and at the same time promoting this idea of not being afraid of failure, trying things. So I clearly, there are, I'm talking about the schools, a little bit, things are beginning to change a little bit, but we are very far away. And when we talk about universities, I think IE is a clear example of trying to promote this entrepreneurial spirit as much as possible, and I am sure we will continue working in this direction, and we will do a lot of things together in this sense in the coming years.
Absolutely. You were quoting a poet before. I wanted also to quote a poet, Rudolf Kipling, the poem If.
If, no?
And you were talking about failure and success, no? And he defined failure and success as two impostors.
Yeah.
So reflecting on your experience, how do you define success?
Well, and now that we are becoming intellectual, no, I will also mention somebody talking about success. I think this is something that can be very useful for students, that Viktor Frankl, in the preface to the English edition of The Man in Search for Meaning, he is saying something that is very philosophical, but in a way it's applicable to your personal life, or it can be applicable to companies. He is saying, don't aim at success, because the more you aim at it, the more you will miss it. And he says, try to do with all your means what more or less your conscience tells you to do. And in the long run, success will come, and happiness. No? That is the way he presents this, which is wonderful, no? Because the idea, you cannot be obsessed with success. You need to be obsessed with doing things in the right way, from every point of view. If we are talking about companies, of course, it has a lot to do. Well, first of all, a company in the long term needs to be profitable. Here, there are many startups, perhaps, that are not yet profitable, but the potential to become profitable. But then you need to think about what you are doing, what is the purpose of the company, what is the working environment, how are you dealing with your suppliers, how are you dealing with the planet, with the environment in which you operate the company, and then put all your means, all your resources, all your efforts in doing things in the best possible way. And success most probably will come, much more than being obsessed with success.
Absolutely. And in your role of a leader, this means not just inspiring every worker to do the best of himself, but also to have a collective success. No, you're usually very, very humble, and when you were asked in the text about your success, you always said, "Look, this is success of the company. There's different parts. There's different parts here that add up into a collective success." No? How do we instigate collective successes?
Well, first of all, what I would say is that I always was saying that in the interviews, because it is totally the case. I mean, in a when you are talking about a company, if the company is successful in different ways, it is because of the work of everybody inside the company. It is not a one person's success. It has to do with the whole company and how everybody is working in the company. And in this sense, it is very, very relevant when you are talking about companies, the level of commitment of the different people involved in the company. And there are things that you can do to promote this. It has to do with people having really decision-making power. It has to do with, depending also on the company, but having people feeling the owners of what they do, having as much as possible a flat structure, as much as possible, because not every company is the same, not every situation is the same, but it is like having many entrepreneurs in the different areas. So the mentality, not to be an employee, but the mentality is like being an entrepreneur who is running this or that area. So there are not being afraid of making mistakes, not trying to have everything under control, letting people space to develop. All this creates a much stronger level of commitment. Also, this means working with passion in what would you do, being able to take decisions, running the risk, feeling responsible. I think all these are things that really help very much. The culture of the company is absolutely determinant from this point of view.
Here, all our entrepreneurs probably are, not all of them, but many of them are digital natives. Their companies are also probably digital native. But when you started running Inditex, there was a big transformation. And you were able to lead that transformation between a company that wasn't digital at all into a company that needed to be digital in order to survive. And you were very successful, no? You were talking about corporate entrepreneurship. I wonder, how did you do this transformation, and what were the keys to make this a success?
I think we can come back to the beginning of our conversation, no? This innovation as a state of mind. So I would say in a company it's very important to keep what you consider is the essence of the company, and then you need to be very flexible. And to be very flexible, and at the same time, there are decisions that you need to take that sometimes are brave, no? From every point of view. Always trying to be, well, I know that this is something very easy to say and very difficult to do, no? But it is always trying to be a little bit ahead of the problems, no? So I know that this sounds very easy, and then in reality it's very complex. But trying to anticipate a little bit to the different situations, and I would say, and then putting all the resources regarding your question, putting all the resources that you need to put. But in terms of the mindset of the people, in terms of the way of approaching to this, what we call fully integrated approach between the digital, the physical world, if you have this innovative mindset, it can happen in a very natural way. And at the same time, of course, putting all the resources that you need to put behind. But I would say that it happens in a more natural way than it could look from outside.
Yeah. When I did the research for this interview, I was surprised with the concept of the list. The list, which basically is those chemicals that and raw materials that you thought were polluting and that you didn't want to use.
Yeah, and I think this is a good example of how particularly big companies or leaders can change for good a reality applicable to a whole sector, I would say. Because when we began working with the chemical companies, with them to see to eliminate certain substances for the process of manufacturing clothes, this has become a standard for the whole industry. So it's something that we have always been very, very happy about and very satisfied because it was for us, but then now it's an industry standard.
Yeah.
So it's a very good example of how relevant companies can lead a change that is positive for the whole sector, or we can say, in this case, for the environment all across the world. No? And this is something that for big companies, of course, every company needs to be responsible. Every company needs to know, because, I mean, there are things that are good and things that are bad. So sometimes we try to relativize, but I mean, and internally, usually you know what is good and what is bad. And a company, of course, at every level, needs to try to be a force for good. But when you are a very relevant company, what you can do, the power to transform the reality and to have a positive impact is much more relevant. And this is something that I would say that most of big relevant European companies that I know quite well, because there is an organization that is called the European Roundtable. Before was Jose Maria, and Telefónica is also a member of this group, industrial European companies. There is a strong commitment from every relevant European company in terms of the global impact on society, on the environment, in terms of ESG. There is a strong commitment in each one in its sector, but there is a strong commitment and knowing that big companies have a bigger responsibility in this transformation.
Actually, last year I was in a panel here talking to one of the greatest experts in sustainability, and we were mentioning that sustainability is not just a cost that companies need to navigate, but it's actually a competitive advantage. It's a whole industry created for this purpose, so there's lots of business opportunities. No? But for established companies, big corporations, how can we transform sustainability, instead of being a cost for them, to make it a competitive advantage for those big corporations?
Well, yes. If you ask me my opinion, I have never thought about sustainability as a competitive advantage. There is something previous, and it has to do with our whole conversation. It is the right thing to do. Of course, it's not only the right thing to do, it's progressively, even compulsory, thinking about all the different stakeholders, your own people that they want to work in a sustainable company, the investors, the media, the NGOs. But before all that is because it is the right thing to do, because you are convinced that we need to go in that direction. Of course, your customers are going to appreciate it. And that is, I mean, finally, you have your customers and you live because your customers like your product. But the way of thinking is not, this is a competitive advantage. Really, this is the right thing to do. This is what we need to do now, and taking care between all of us about the planet and going in this direction. And it's something that it is something progressive, it's a journey, but it is the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
I think that is the main element. And then, of course, come all the other things.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I want to make you a last question, because I can tell you that my phone rang the day that we announced that you were going to be collaborating with us, I don't know how many times. And people asked, like, how did you do it? And to be honest, the answer was, like, we didn't do anything. He really wanted to be part of this academic institution. I guess, I mean, I don't want to answer the question for you, no? But for us, obviously, your experience is a great way to share with our students, and it's a great way to give back also, no, from you. But I wanted to ask you why, and I also wanted to ask you, what do you think an academic institution such as IE can do for a society as the one that we live in today?
Yeah. Well, I would say I really wanted to dedicate part of my time to things related with education. I believe very much of education has a strong power of transformation in the societies. And I think IE, from this point of view, is very unique. I think IE combines, we were talking before, is innovative, is entrepreneurial, and at the same time is also humanistic. That for me, because we are talking about innovation, here I'm sure you are talking a lot about technology, new things, but we can never forget about the humanistic aspect. And I think IE combines these three elements. It's a wonderful project. Now I am knowing much better IE, and I see this entrepreneurial spirit all across the institution, and the freedom that people decide what to do, so nobody is telling people what they have to do. It's very innovative, very entrepreneurial, and I am sure we will continue, and we can play a very, very relevant role in society.
Thank you very much. So the music is playing, I guess it's for us. So
thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Incredible. Thank you.